webinar will be focused towards, actually it's digitization is another word. Digitization is equal to digitalization, and something around payment card security, which most of you might be aware. But just to create that extra value around value proportions around, because I keep attending every week or so one webinar, and sometimes it's so on the surface, it's on the surface, and it's not really overwhelming with any much information. It's just on the surface, it's covered in terms of some of the basics of security, or it could be some of the basics of technology and controls and all this stuff. But just to give some value proportions here, to create that value for the time what we are spending here, I've made sure that there is a lot of statistical data which is coming in into this presentation. It would have been great if there were more external people on this, because that was creating more value proportions for us, because there's a lot of content. Definitely there's a lot of good content in that. So the coverage will be much more than what is projected, but we have lost 15 minutes of time. Considering that there is only lost 15 minutes time, I would see my best to see through that. I will cover everything. Maybe at certain places I might have to be quick, but that's just to accommodate the available time, fit all the content from the presentation within the available time duration, right? So just to jump straight into the presentation, I would just go directly into global digital economy. Perspective of global digital economy, or economy is about the digital economy is all about electronic goods, e-payments, digital payments. It's all about e-commerce and technology driven. That's digital economy. So digital economy, when we talk about, this has been like last 5 to 6 years, we've been seeing that everybody talking about digital transformation, digitization as a language, and there is a lot of shift in the from the technology front when we started talking about digitization. So that's leading to digital transformation. So the digital transformation, what we are seeing at this moment of time, is more about being borderless, perimeterless, zero trust, COVID-19 pushing. I think more participants have come in. Thanks for joining. So no borders. There's a lot of technology changes, shift in the technology which is happening because of the COVID-19 induced crisis. Very, very importantly, prominently, there's a shift in the way we operate. That's going perimeterless because people are now working across the globe or sitting across different regions far away. And how do you bring a perimeter onto perimeter security to those people who are really sitting apart? So because traditional networks, enterprises used to have boundaries and we used to have perimeters and put the firewalls and stuff. That doesn't work anymore. That's a shift. So pushing more into digital payments because of once again the COVID-19 induced crisis of being contactless payments and other stuff. So what is the problem is digital economy is good. So it's adding a lot of momentum the way we do business, but the problem is cyber security is like the number of breaches which is happening and which has increased drastically over last 3 years, 2017, 18 to now. There's a big shift, and the trend is 2020 has been even more worst from the cybersecurity crimes because there's COVID-19 specific spear phishing attacks, COVID-19 specific attacks, social engineering attacks. So so it says 71% of breaches were financially motivated and 25% were espionage. So that's Verizon's statistics derived from Verizon. Now back to the whole adoption of this digitalization or digital economy is all about internet adoption first, means global internet adoption. So for us to say it's a digital economy, 100% digital economy. So 100% we are digitalized. So there should be 100% internet adoption by people. So what's enabling? We've got a lot of interesting content here in this slide, which I've taken personally for my personal interest there to show some statistics, which is really, really, really good for us to understand where we are heading. We are 2020. I'll tell you, in 3 years, we are heading in a direction which looks so sophisticated. Cybersecurity is the #1 domain, because there's gonna be everything. Already we are talking about Internet of Things and everything on internet. So with all the smart enablements on all the devices, including the gadgets, small to bigger gadgets, home appliances, everything. Global internet adoption. Now, back to, if you look at this statistics, once again, it comes from Digital Economy Report 2019. So the amount of data consumption has been growing so big. It's like multipliers after the multipliers. So every year we've been growing so big, and there is a projection 2022, the numbers look so big. So that's an indication that they're gonna be much more. Every 3 times, means per person, there'll be 3 devices on internet. That's a multiplier to the global population, considering that 2022 or 23, by then, so smartphones are already cheaper, and there are a lot of M2Ms and other stuff. So there will be everything on internet, and there will be 60% even adoption happens there. Having everybody having smartphones and stuff, that's going to be a into 3 multiplier. That's huge. So if you look at this report very clearly, it says 2023, 5.3 billion total internet users. So 66% of global population, not 60%, 66 by 2023. So 2018, you look at the statistics, 3.9. And if you look at, there will be 29.3 billion network devices. That's massive. So that's because of smart appliances, smart enablement. Everywhere, everything is digitalized. Your aircon can be controlled from anywhere. That's a problem. We are talking now. So yeah. So there's much more bigger problem than what we are seeing at this moment of time. COVID-19 is just an enabler, which is kind of enabled business to holistically look at businesses from a different direction, bring in technologies which can really not just draw boundaries and stuff, because you can still be in your systems. Your ecosystems can still be under crisis because somebody sitting outside doesn't have a perimeter security. So over 70% of the global population will have mobile connectivity. That's what I was talking. So even if you say 60%, it's still a massive into 3 multiplier, right? So what is the driving factor? Is prime important factor behind this is internet being cheaper and mobile devices being cheaper. Now there are much more than smartphones. There are a lot of gadgets coming in. Everything is cheaper now. Another thing is drastically what we saw from 2002 to 2018, 18 to 2020, the speed, internet speed has been doubling, thrice, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times. If you look at 13.2 Mbps in 2018, average mobile network speed. But what we are talking is average. Average means it's not a maximum. It's averaged 23.9 Mbps by 2023. That's mobile internet. I'm not even talking about your fixed lines. So just looking at how we are going from the statistics of the internet speeds and the cost, mobile cost, the internet cost overall per Gbps, it's been cut also. It's no more like we have to pay a lot of money to have internet downloads and stuff. So the statistics looks dangerous. If you look at this consolidated rate, aggregated the data rate. So if you look at there is smartphones 27%. That's gonna go even, that's growing bigger. But more importantly, M2Ms are growing. So there are now traditionally what we used to use PCs. They just stagnant from 2018 because they don't, because people are mobile employees. They have most of the time they've been given with gadgets and still I would say laptops gonna be still there, but traditionally when we talk PCs, they are not mobile, classified under the mobile devices. they're not they're immovable assets, or probably they're static at the office. So this is the trend, and it comes from the Cisco annual white paper on internet, which was published a few months before. 2023 globally 66% internet users. Yeah, once again back around 60 to 70% realistically, and geographical trends are also there here for us to understand how we are going. So Middle East is still a market, Africa and Middle East, because they're still growing very slowly. That gives us a massive opportunity for us to penetrate into these kind of markets. These markets are evolving markets still. They still did not evolve from the data rates or from any of those technology penetration perspective, is what we can make out. Sorry for that. Impact on technology and cyber security to precisely talk. So if you look at, once again, we have derived information from multiple data sources, data feeds. Spending, we used to talk about 3%, 4%, 5% budgeting for security and all this. It's no more the trend. Now, security has been the most important thing, and it's also classified as one of the essential services by the government of India, government across the globe, actually, because they see that security is something that cannot be neglected. So 2.4% to reach $124 billion. That's all. So in 2020, we are talking, it's much more than that, because the current trend is indicating it's much more than that. So market, worldwide internet market, right? Information security market, particularly is around 180 billion or 170 billion as per the Gartner 2022 forecast. So that's the indication that there will be a dip in the, there'll be a demand and there'll be a dip. When there's a demand on skills, there'll be a dip among the number of real skilled workforce. So really skilled workforce. There will be skills, there will be people, but really skilled, those SMEs, subject matter experts on information security, that's where is the we are seeing. I know there's a bit of a cut down due to COVID crisis. There's a bit of a cut down on the workforce and all. That's once again, it's interim. It's interim state. It's not going to be like a permanent state. But soon there will be a spike in the demand for information security professionals. That's what is clearly projected by Gartner. It's not from me. So once again, why national cybersecurity strategies? Why not international? Why not global cybersecurity strategies? That's because cybersecurity is something that when we look at the trend, every regionally across the globe, every region has got its own set of trend, and the types of attacks or the type of issues are different. And nationally, and the nation has to have their own cybersecurity strategies, how to defend these kind of attacks. And there should be a strategy. That's why it's national, and then it becomes global. Once we work on national, global cybersecurity strategies, then it becomes a global cybersecurity strategy. Digital economy is really pushing for us to have some strategies, right? So now, organization perspective, they should have strategies. Now there could be multiple strategies driven, but still, a strategy is a strategy. A long-term strategy, short-term strategies, operational goals and other stuff, right? They should all be aligned. So most importantly, Bitcoins have impacted, and because its own rules, creating its own rules. Any new technology coming in, any new technology which is quite different. We're talking about perimeterless security. They define the rules change. Then comes the threat. Then there's a vulnerability, inherent weakness, and there is a chance that it can be exploited. Then comes the threat, and then comes the security risk, the risk appetite. So very important for businesses to look at the business impact analysis and draw up strategies, security objectives, align those with business objectives, to be really successful in defend themselves from any of these attacks, which could be costly proportion for businesses. So looking at once again, usage of mobile payments, that's enabler once again for people who are working in a payment card industry in terms of payment securities and stuff. So 1.3 trillion, that's massive. That's really massive. At this moment of time, if you look at, you put up the multipliers and see how much skills are required. And the problem is right now, there are skills, but they're really not skillful. That's a major challenge the industry is facing. That's where a lot of people are getting laid off, because they're not skillful. E-wallets, to account for the highest share for online payments in 2000. E-wallets, that's from PR Newswire. So different data feeds from data feeds, different data from data sources. Different data sources have been, we pulled up this information from different data sources to ensure that we got a full trend here. We got a realistic projection here, so we know where we are heading. Now, very, very importantly, with the growing digital markets, digital economy, digitization, impact on digital transformation. So ultimately, so what's happening is also a risk of having these devices not being protected with the thinner APIs, with the thinner platforms, with no security embedded into it. So the DDoS, the botnets, there are more botnets getting created, dynamic botnets. So dynamically, there are different trends different trends of attacks coming out on the DDoS itself. Total records exports per breach to grow. DDoS attacks will double from 7.9 million 2018 to 15. Actually, it's much more than that, because current statistics is the last 6 months, we've already seen huge DDoS attacks with huge payloads. You know, these payloads were, and the way I have some examples here to really show one of the attacks which happened, and Akamai was had a security incident, and they handled it. They could mitigate the attack. So I've got some real statistics, as I said, data. So look at this attack, which is not, it's 2020 June, sometime during the COVID crisis. So looking at this attack, Akamai themselves was surprised. The attack was so dynamic in nature. Attack generated 809 million packets per second. PPS, they're not talking anymore BPS, PPS, mega, million. It's not even mega, million. Targeting a larger European bank. The target was a larger European bank. If you look at, I did take a look at the report to understand, the evolution of these attacks. They are evolving. They are becoming sophisticated. Do we really need a DDoS prevention techniques? Do we need any of those appliances? How do we do when we are perimeterless? We can't put everywhere appliances which can. So looking at that, if you look at this, 600 times the number of source IPs per minute, upward source IPs kept multiplying, and the multiplier was so big. And beyond just the volume of IP address, so from IPs, we have there are botnets which are emerging. You know, there are new botnets. And looking at the past trend, Akamai said some of the IPs looked very new for them. They were not from those IPs which in the past. That's another risk. Dynamicity added once again. Highly unusual that 96.2% of source IPs observed were for the first time. That's what is the risk, right? Very importantly, the risk looks like it's dynamic. Things are dynamic and they're sophisticated. Now, back to we have looked at some of the risk, right? Risk which we might be attracting due to the digitalization effect, global economy, digital economy. So global digital economy enablers. Enablers are most importantly smart mobile phones or smartphones, which is coming at low cost. Internet of Things, definitely platforms like Internet of Things get embedded into every appliance, and they got thinner, they don't have security embedded. There is no such sophisticated layered security defense or anything like that. It's a thin layer of security. Mobile-based API is user-friendly. API interfaces are not secure. Faster internet. Yeah, now we can also throw as fast as possible the packets. You can fabricate and throw, and you can, as dynamically as the internet is growing faster, so with 5Gs and all those stuff, so things are also getting sophisticated that you can also throw as many packets. You can create a botnet and attack a particular targeted attack system to a DDoS, kill the service. So cut on data cost, yes, definitely. More digital payment solution providers APIs, but the only problem is these APIs are not being secured. Secure software development lifecycle not being properly followed, and the subject matter experts are really not involved to really review and provide inputs to whether the solution is secure enough. So manufacturers, from traditional to smart appliances, yeah, everything is smart appliance. Traditional only these appliances never used to sit on the internet now, but everything can be internet. You just got Wi-Fi and everything is on the internet, including your IP phones at home. Phones and your cameras and your Acons, your refrigerator. Samsung's got all the smart capable appliances. So risk, talking about the basics, very importantly, exposure factor is increasing. And that's once again adds back to the risk profile. Increased vulnerability eventually leading to threat, risk appetite, higher risk appetite. Once again, borderless things are going borderless because every home is on internet. Every now home is with a 20. If it's a bigger home with 20 people or 40 people, now they got a 40 into 360, 60 things running there, and 60 things. Maybe there is a gateway and they're all connected to the gateway, but still 60 appliances and there's higher bandwidth fiber, and they can now attack if they're infected. Okay, so zero trust leading to adoption of newer technologies. Now, there should be zero trust. Now, that's what we are talking. By default, we need to make sure that we follow zero trust, considering that remote workforce are growing. So we cannot have full trust. Zero trust. Start from zero trust, and then evaluate the endpoint, whether it can be trusted or not. Then, based on the evaluation report, its health report, then you can bring it onto the network, or you can isolate it. So, or you can take to a different zone altogether. These are the kinds of the solution that most of the vendors are talking now. So, smart solutions. So, defense in depth is a question, because how do you even provide defense in depth when we're talking about those platforms and appliances which are so lean? It's once again questionable. How do we even talk about defense in depth when we don't have a layered security, when we are following a perimeterless security, when we are not following any of those basic rules? Just a minute. There is a message. I just have to take a break. Okay, all right, no problem. We'll address it later. So, yeah, very importantly, am I audible to everybody? Hopefully, yes, I think so. I'm not on mute. Okay, let me move on further, because we got a lot of content, lot of data, realistic data. Shift. Look at the shift. This particular projection is not to scare anybody. This particular projection is to show post-lockdown and prior lockdown shift. There's a shift in the way things are. You look at the green part of it and the other color. So the green, it's gone indirectly proportional. It's indirectly proportional. So card spend before lockdown and post-lockdown, people started spending more using e-commerce channels, contactless payments. So these are the things which got enabled. So COVID-19 was indeed an enabler for digital payments. It did help with digital transition, because I personally looked at the statistics across APAC region, because that's my focus. And every single country, including Philippines, including some of those Myanmar, including some of those countries is really still a bit backward, green countries. They also saw, the shift or the spike in the e-commerce transactions, very importantly. Yeah. So once again, global data extract. This data comes from is taken from the global data, leading data and analytics company. Total card payments in APAC market is expected to grow 6.5%. to reach US dollar 20 trillion in 2020. That's massive, and around 28 trillion by 2023. 2020 itself was a very big enabler. It's big push actually. COVID-19 has done some good job on the digital, but also it has done a bad job of giving giving heart attacks for people or in organizations in terms of having prepared for such pandemics, and also implement some new technologies and evaluate new technologies as I was talking. So also some breaches, new kinds of breaches and attacks have evolved. Philippines, as I said, surged 150% in 1 month. Southeast Asia, same trend has been seen. Okay, now outcome of this digitization is digital transformation as an outcome of digitization. That's what there's a transformation. And what is leading to this transformation? Where we are heading, actually. I can tell 2022-23, there is people who have been just sitting and doing some traditional jobs of thinking, I'm a this role and I'm just do this and that's it. They got to think out of the box because things are changing, roles are changing. And there's a demand for people to learn more and learn some new things, right? From the digital enablement perspective, it's very much required for people to be aware of kind of the risk and basics of information security. The skills are changing, new job types are coming out. So, and there are a lot of emphasis focused towards automation. So I know there's a lot of automations going on, DevOps automations and stuff. A lot of people are talking. There are a lot of specific roles on that. But what is the risk of doing such automation? Once again, there's a risk inherently. There's an inherent risk of such automation. So what we are doing, and there's also a point of risk of having failures due to such automation if not properly monitored. So all these things have to be digital leaders. It says new ways of working. You need digital leaders. You need employees who are digitally enabled also. Yeah. Okay. I think we got losing time. I have to be a little quick on the basics. Back to the security objectives, right? So doesn't matter. Pandemic comes and goes. Doesn't matter. Disaster comes and goes, still the security objectives, our security objectives, your business objectives, the goals will still remain the same, but maybe you might look from a different perspective of enabling certain, there will be new enablers like remote remote workforce enablement. So that's an enablement. There's a technology behind, there's a countermeasure to be put to see through that. We talk about zero trust. Biggest threat for any business is data loss and theft, which cannot be consumed by any business. They don't want data loss. So that's impacts directly to business reputation, which is intangible in nature. So security objectives is round the clock, secure environment, safe and secure. Safety is on the physical front. CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's security principles, triples, as we call. Data is in the core, and we ensure that the data confidentiality is protected, integrity is protected. It's available around the clock. Now, looking back at some of those drivers, what could be the drivers is, see, the pandemic was a driver, as I discussed, for many things. It was an enabler for many new technologies, many new thought process. So we always have to see holistically, positively, both sides. There will be two phases always. Drivers, law, regulatory, best practices, business objectives, derive security program, organization security policy, management statement, security statement, management security statement, procedures, standards, guidelines, all this come out. It says prevention is better than cure in the bottom, but yes, prevention is always better. It's always good to prevent. But there is a question coming in soon. Then I will answer, try to answer. Aligning security with mission, goals, and objectives. Many information security professionals across the globe I've met and I've seen. Most of them lack basics. That's a basic problem. With CISSPs, with bigger certificates, gold standard, diamond standard certificates, still they lack basics. They don't understand the basics properly. and they are more process oriented people than practice oriented. Both process and practice are two key. It's like left hand and right hand. You got to balance it off. You can't say, oh, I don't need one of the hands. Then you'll know when you have to climb, when you have to hold the rope, then how much difficulty you have to hold it in one hand. So aligning security with mission, goals, and objectives is very important. So senior management support is the key, as we all know from the basics. But very importantly, the organization should have definite vision, and there should be mission statements supporting the vision, and business objectives are written very clearly. Security objectives are derived, and there are goals, multiple goals, and the KPIs coming out to make sure that the goals are met. Key performance indicators, and there are CFS. Yeah. So very importantly, we need to understand here is your vision is future. Your mission is now. That's present. You got to align your mission. You got to align your mission with vision, and the goals have to be aligned. The objectives are very clearly defined, precisely defined. So critical success factors for the organization have to be evaluated. That's very, very, very important. There could be multiple right? CFS. So metrics, you have to derive metrics once you have a KPI. So very, very important. If an organization is missing on all this, I can definitely, if an individuals are missing on, they don't understand all these parameters. If an information security manager or information security professional doesn't focus on these parameters, then definitely there is a gap. Okay. So we talk about the gaps. Now, once again, there are different approaches to see through that. Some of the these objectives and vision, mission, and all at the top level gets pushed down, right? That the answer is top-down approach is the way. Now, a security program should use which approach is the question, right? I already probably started answering it, but yeah. But somebody said to me, "Oh, you can use bottom-up approach also." I'll tell you no. Any program, any program written down, it should be top-down approach. Cannot have a bottom-up approach. It should flow from the senior management support, and it should flow down to senior management, middle management, and the staff. So very, very importantly, we got to focus. Or we got to understand any effective person or an organization goes with these SMART measures: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So there cannot be a activity which is having no time start and end. So it has to be realistic, and it should be achievable, and it should be measurable. There should be metrics. There should be KPIs, CSS, and it should be very specifically focused. As I said, very specific. Before I made a statement, very specific on certain when I was talking about vision. So now governance. Let's talk about security governance a bit. So can somebody tell me security governance? Can it use a bottom-up approach? I think yeah, you can unmute and probably you can talk, because I need a 2 minutes acoustic break, so I put up some questions there. Okay, so you cannot unmute, is it? One moment, let me see what is the problem. You guys can unmute anybody by any chance, or it's locked? It's not locked.
We can, sir. We can unmute.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. It's a security governance. I'm just gonna lock down once again. Oh, it's lockdown is no one else can join. I'll unlock. People can join. So security governance should be a top-down approach, as we know that governance is always at the top, about senior management even. So that should use a top-down approach. Now, there's a lot to it, right? Architecture, design, and all this stuff. So when we talk about secure software development lifecycle, we talk about security at the start, at the day one or the initial phase itself. Very, very important. I'll tell you, this topic is so vast that it's just what an hour is not good enough actually to talk about it. If a person knows what he's talking, and if he has a knowledge required, not read through just the slides. Now, design and architecture, when we talk, right, specifically the technical requirements, and the technical requirements in turn talks about security as the key element in the technical requirement. So so when you look at a design and architecture, once again, top-down approach, the business goals, business requirements, functional requirements, application requirements, technical requirements. So all these are requirements, different types of requirements which are evaluated. And during the initial stage of planning itself, the security is taken into consideration. Now, if you look at a design and architecture from what could be the, what are the initiatives, there could be design, redesign, and architecture to fit in a security requirement, virtualization and multi-tenancy. And when we talk multi-tenancy, then came these security groups, orchestration, micro-segmentation, and all this. Security, we're talking security now. When you talk micro-segmentation, security, we're talking security. End-to-end confidentiality, security, integrity of data initiatives. So this could be the initiatives for design and architecture, or inputs for a design and architecture. Now, what could be the driving factors? You want to scale up, you want to enhance security, you want to replace the technology, you want to merge or divest and all this, right? There could be tons of things. I've just listed out what I could, but there could be tons of things which can be listed. Business technical application, functional, different types of requirements, business consideration leading to design. Drivers could be multiple drivers, security, compliance. Compliance could be one of the requirements, regulatory requirements, business continuity, disaster recovery, high availability. Under the high availability comes DR plans and all this stuff. So access controls and all this. Design approaches, there can be multiple approaches in design. This is limited to only few here. Holistic approach, siloed approach. Siloed approach is island approach, communication island. Non-scalable, definitely. Siloed approach is non-scalable. No gold plating means no extra features. Means we only need what we need. We don't need extra gold plating there. That's what is the design approach. There could be multiple things. They might say, I need a micro-segmented, secured design. I might need containerized, secure design. The containerized approach to all the containers, micro-segmentation in place. Planning, I'm talking current technology, trying to bring some of those terminologies there, because we cannot be just stupid. Means we are not dynamic, we are just stupid. So planning approach, strategic, tacticals, and all this. Once again, when we are talking about goals and plannings and all this, right? Planning approach itself is, there can be tactical approach or strategic approach. There can be two approaches there, a combined approach also. Design principles, modularity, fault isolation, responsiveness, security, resiliency, scalability, manageability. All these are part of it, and much more. I have much more parameters. I've just made sure that it is talking few. Security principle, back to the security principle. I've tried my best to fit in a lot of content that most of the people don't like to do, because it's going to be a tough thing on you, because you might not be able to cover everything, right? So CI trade we already covered. Confidential, integrity, availability is the key. And if disclosure, destruction, alteration happens, all these three are compromised. That's what it says. The CI trade, the triangle says clearly. Disclosure leads to confidentiality impacted, destruction leads to availability being impacted, alteration leads to integrity. Very importantly, there are much more things here. Some of the good practices on CI is mandatory vacations. Ask people to go on vacation. They think that nobody knows my dirty job, what I did. But you send for vacation, another person takes over, you will uncover or probably unveil all the under the carpet cover. Things will come out. So anything which is put under the carpet will come out. Segregation of duties, yes, definitely important. Job rotations, yeah, keep rotating jobs. Least privilege is also another confidentiality can be also be protected through such measures. Apart from integrity, need to know basis, just keep on a basis what their roles are, and need to know why do they need such access, why do they need such information. Dual control, so just to make sure that the two people are overseeing it. So a lot of things, right? A lot of things we talk. Security is like vast, it's ocean. So IT and OT, very importantly, when we talk about operational technology, more emphasis on integrity, and that's where the deep plunge or the dive goes in. But still, nevertheless, I cannot say that just integrity is important. Confident integrity, availability is still important. It's important. It's important. It's three properties are very important even for OT. Maybe their priorities change. That's it. See, I once again, so code validation, very importantly, why we do authentication and all this. Okay, NIST cybersecurity framework. Most of you all might be aware of it. It's very important for us to identify, then protect, detect, respond, recover. So I have a basic question here. So it says identify, protect, identify, protect. So so very important to identify your assets first. That's what it means, and then protect them. And detection is nevertheless to say, once again, it's such a high important control. Detection controls have to be there. If you don't detect, you're not going to protect. Maybe the tendency you are protected, but you're not detecting means failure of the control. So other way of putting it across. If you don't detect, prevention is better than cure. How do you even prevent? So there's a question coming in. I know I'm quite upfront in some of the presentations. Controls and its effectiveness. A lot of controls are deployed. It's just a namesake, doing nothing. Antivirus deployed and the signature is not updated. Just give excuses saying it's there, yeah, it's there. We are updating it now. And yeah, security guy is sleeping over, but he's just sitting in his chair, and a security operation guy 24/7 sitting in front of the dashboard where there are alerts coming in, red alerts, and he's just, it looks like from behind he's watching it seriously, but he's closing his eyes and he's not doing anything. That's a failure of the control. People control. There are different types of controls, right? As we are all, security guard has been deployed and is sleeping there. Now, you might get in, but you won't get out. That's a good way of putting it across. Means there is a control in place. And can somebody tell me what is this control which is there? The first one. You might get in, but you won't get out. Anyway, I know people might not be able to unmute, or I don't know what is the technical problem there, but yeah, that's fine. So that's once again a combination of if the control is already there, the dog is there, and it's preventing, and the deterrent also, it's scaring people. Whether the dog is there is a different story, later stage. So you need to bring your perspective horizon, broaden your horizon of looking into what the control can provide apart from just one functionality. So baby on board, deterrent. What's about the kid in the last one? The kid went grew up a little, and he became effective, and he became defensive. He's got defensive control. Kung fu. He's about to show his kung fu style, and then he became defensive as well as he might prevent. It depends on his skill level. If he's a red belt, blue belt, and black belt, something, so he might accordingly defend, defend and prevent. So prevent, because he might kick the guy out straight, not like the guy who's sleeping there. Some security perspective, expensive firewall. Okay, which comes first, detection or prevention? Some people say you need to prevent, but how do you even prevent without having a control in place? Detection is very, very important. Yeah. I think, yeah, you don't just build things, expensive, complicated things, which doesn't serve the purpose. Objectives have to be achieved, very importantly. If you cannot achieve the objective of the particular control is a failure, and it's just going to add itself into a risk to the organization on a later stage. Make sure people are doing the job, very importantly. They don't sit in front of the desk and warming up the desk or the seat. They're just doing what they've been asked to do, and role based. Need to know, need to have bases, and they have access to data for them to do a good job. Not access also. Do you realize by now what is a control? All these basics. Just quickly move on. Security awareness is very important. I don't have to really provide any focus, provide enough emphasis there, because it's one of the most important thing that most of the standards talk about, not just PCI DSS. Every standard talks from the HIPAA perspective. It says is required periodically. When the word is periodically, many businesses interpret periodically as annually. So most of the standard talks training. I don't have to explicitly mention here. Trojan horse, don't just get carried away by something something excites you, and you just bring it in, and then comes the trouble, and the risk appetite increases, because there's a lot of your enemies are sitting inside that horse, and they unlock themselves out in the midnight, and they create that becomes a threat, because inherently there is a hole you created in the system. So you open the gate. That's Trojan horse story, Greek. A known devil is better than an unknown stranger. Don't somebody is better always, and don't just bring unknown things in without evaluating. Enough of due care is required. That's going to boil down to due care. Once again, PCI DSS, considering the stakeholders on the call, most of you all have already looked into the stakeholder list. Most of the people are aware of PCI DSS. I have no second thought about it. So I'm not going to go deep into the PCI DSS. I'm just going to say that, because we got another 25 minutes approximately, I just have to be quick. So PCI DSS is a data security standard. As it says, it's a data security standard specifically focused towards card order data. And what it is focusing is, when the card order data is moving on the transmission lines, when the card order data is under the RAM or the processing, it's under the processing state, and the card order data is in rest, is in the storage. All this will be covered, and the people, process, and technology. So all these three components or trinities of business all will be covered under this PCI DSS, to put it in a very short, in a nutshell, to speak about PCI DSS. Now, the stories are always there to read. I'm not a storyteller, so I just go straight. PCI is needed because it's standard, and certain times your acquirer banks or upstreams might ask you, or the national bank may impose such enforcement might be coming from top to bottom. Once again, top to bottom approach. Everything is going digital, and we know clickjacking, phishing, social engineering, a lot of try by download attacks, and there's a lot of security and fraud incidents. People are getting fooled and cheated. So due care is very, very important. You might be needed to be PCI DSS company. I'm not going to market anything around PCI DSS here. I'm just going to talk about payment security. So I better just focus. Now, compliance is 24/7, and validation is yearly task. And the customer has to ensure that they are round the clock compliant. So that's their responsibility. Quiz of the moment: what kind of data PCI is focusing? Definitely card order data. What does HIPAA focus on? HIPAA's focus, definitely we know patient health record, health information. What comes first in the order? Accountability or authentication or authorization? Can somebody answer this? Last question. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to answer it off. Very importantly, authentication, as you know, it's a step number one, and after comes the other steps. Yeah. Okay. PCI compliance, once again, talking about everything is going digital and pushing everyone to be security and fraud aware. Yeah. There's a driving factor: digital payment, digital enablement, digitalization. All these are merchant, one who accepts card payments and cardless payments, e-commerce, all those stuff are classified as merchants. All those people are kind of classified as merchant. All those businesses are classified as merchant businesses. Acquirers want to acquire the transaction, your banks, and one is issuing the cards, and one who does authorization is one who is issuing the card, does the authorization. Okay, all right. I've been quite. Anyway, we all are aware of the PAN, 16-digit in the front, and expiration date, and your CVV, CVC on the behind. is quite sensitive. Sensitive authentication data, sensitive authentication, right? It's authentication data being sensitive. You need to be taking care of that. That's much more than 16. So that's much more important than your 16-digit PAN, but yes, equally important, all of them. So track 1, track 2 data story. Track 1 is the full data. Track 2 is the partial data. I'm just gonna, it's got much more information than track 2. And very importantly, I've already spoken, sensitive authentication data is sensitive than your card order data, which is primarily primary account number, name and expiration date. So now back to what can be done, what cannot be done, what can be stored. So this table is going to talk about any of those track data and pin blocks cannot be stored at any cost. Simple as that. Sensitive authentication data, no. Rest all, yes, with encryption, protection enabled. These are encryption or any of the other countermeasures, safeguards. Applicability, it applies for all who deals with the transactions, as simple as that. And I'm just gonna quickly jump over PADS's applicability. PADS is whichever application which transacts, which receives the which receives the card data and they process it. They can be under this PADS's applicability, but provided if they want to sell this application to somebody else, then that could be the potential opportunity for them to be PADSs. But because of the assurance, they need to provide assurance to customer. Why? A customer has to invest in their application because they're gonna tell we are already PADSs, blah blah blah. So hardware terminals within have an application which is processing actual card data. Transactions are handled. The hardware terminal itself is also certified, PTS validated, PTS pin certified. Yeah, so those are the stories. There are different certifications there under the PCI, SSC, different certification, different standards for hardware certification. Okay, what PCI covers is six of the milestone set, also called goals, but they're going to split into 12 requirements, as you're all aware of it. So for me, my life is, I want to keep it very simple. Start with something which you think about building and maintaining. And then once you build and maintain an infrastructure, network, and systems, then you think about protecting the data which is residing on those systems. And then to protect, you need certain countermeasure safeguards like encryption, tokenization, different technologies are there, countermeasures are there. And then you look at these platforms now. How do you secure this platform? How do you even ensure that the malwares don't infect them and the application don't get compromised, is maintained? Create a vulnerability management program and then manage through that vulnerability management program, manage the platform well. And make sure that intruders are there and hackers don't jump into the system. There is a strong access control measures, logical as well as physical. Okay, very, very importantly, logical as well as physical. That's very important, right? So very important, step number 1, as I already discussed, authenticate the system properly. Use the multiple factors of authentication, multiple ways of authenticating systems. Use secure way and no bypass, no repeated authentication systems like card and pins and all this stuff. And then do have a level of authorization. Policies are written too, so that they specifically know exactly who can be authorized for what, and then account them. Very, very important. So physical controls, are also important. Then just you have all this. If you don't monitor them, you don't get to know what's happening. So do monitor them and come to keep testing system, because things are very dynamic in nature. As we already discussed, things are so dynamic. They're changing. Last 2 years have been so massive impact on IT. I myself and everybody had to go dive deep into the new things, otherwise you are outdated. So very, very important. So yeah, very important. Information security as an umbrella has to cover everything. Yeah. So I've put it in very simple way of talking. How do we address PCI-DSS standards? How do we achieve those 6 milestones of the goals through 12 requirements broken down, and in a very simple fashion? I put it across. It's a clean flow. No need to memorize. No need to become that another book another story, just flow through it. It is just logical in nature. It's just logical. What's your habit? Doing what is required or doing what's not required. Do what is required. Do what is necessary. Don't unnecessarily do things which are not necessary. Yeah, that's what is the prime focus here. Good habits. Okay, and some of the requirement number 7 specifically talks about access control, logical, restrict access to card data by business, need to know basis, least privilege basis. So that's what is the focus. Do something constructive, role based access, give access based on roles. By default, cut, deny all. By default, say no access, and then add based on the role. Yeah. So authorization, very important. Approval by authorizers for any privilege assignment. That's a good way of looking into it. Don'ts might be constructive. It's been raining for too many days now. Somebody says, oh, it's been raining for too many days. Just open the floodgate forever. That's costly proportion. Don't do that. Okay. So that's going to be a costly proportion. Somebody can sneak in. Yeah. Giving excessive permission, good friend, asking, it's not role-based access anymore. You violated the basic control. Yeah. Identity authenticate system, very, very important. Authentication is the basic, as I already said. If you cannot authenticate, then it's a major failure. If authentication bypass, that's one of the issues, vulnerability, that's major issue. Do's. Once again, something constructive. Unique IDs, lockouts to avoid brute force, lockout, release, password resets, password expiry, password policy, strong password policy. Very, very important. Multi-factor authentications, very important. Very, very important. Don't assume that the protocol is secure without you knowing really whether it is implemented in a secure fashion or not. Many times, customer says we have NTP v3 or v4 implemented, that's secure. Assessor out of his lack of knowledge or lack of his implementation knowledge, lack of understanding the control itself, he is going to say, okay, done, I'm certifying. Okay, you pass. But that's not what it makes to be secure. There should be a secure implementation with auto key facilitation, which is the latest latest implementation that people are talking, and symmetric key pairs and other things. And if you are not aware, do drop a note. I can help you with any of these implementations or any of this technology. RFCs talk about it. RFCs have very detailed information around all this. You might be a busy person, not taken a look at RFC. I can help you out. Some of the challenges to be addressed by security controls and standards. Wow. Very, 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 very important. This is a very important slide. Software-defined networking. A lot of things have gone into software-defined networking. What is software-defined networking? Move all the control plane on a server, and there's like terminals, dumb terminals, and the control plane is on a central application server. What if this central application server gets compromised? Then the whole infrastructure is compromised. High risk. Some of the challenges we still did not address. SDNs, how the SDNs are impacting, and the attackers are still not really thinking maybe in this fashion, but soon they're gonna start looking at those critical appliances, what we call critical appliances, even though it's not really critical, but still they are critical because the whole control plane sits on that system. Threat intelligence must move closer to threatening activity. Yeah, very, 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 very well said. Very important. These are all written by my own personal experience, and also some of those are derived from Gartner's emerging technology analysis, or it could be from somebody. But yes, as I read through many of the articles I keep reading, I've put up some of the points here, some of my technology understanding through that. SDNs is one of those which I really see that in the future there's a high risk. Very important. The problem is we always talk about perimeter security, and maybe the threat is on the endpoint. So that's a prevention focus. That's why it says yes. Once again, it says prevention focus, but threat can come within inside. And then how do you even tell my perimeter security is defending internal security, internal compromises? That's not doing anything. Okay, faster evolving technology, added dynamicity. Yes, dynamicity everywhere. A lot of multi-tenancy, segmentations, Kubernetes, containerization, a lot of things. I'll tell you, if you're not aware of how these things work and all this, please do upgrade. Because very important that security is also getting microsegmented. Security is also getting into very niche focused security areas. It's different security controls at different areas. It's not going to have one box fits in all. No, that's not the case, because we already went other side now with the COVID-19 crisis. It's already showed, it has proven to the world, it has really proven that, so you cannot have one perimeter security and it can cover everything. No more perimeter security. Cloud and its impact on cyberspace, very important. High virtualization ratio, multi-tenancy, need for microsegmentation to provide fine-grained controls, very important, right? Higher demand to upgrade, leading to shorter revision cycles, right? Update cycles, skills, that add back to skills, standard process practices, all have to be refined, revised. Lack of synchronization between the changes, people, process, and technology into lower quality outcomes and deliverables. Yeah, all these have been written word by word, except for the Gartner technology analysis derived from Gartner. So security testing coverage by, unfortunately, I would put, why I say unfortunate, fortunately, instead of saying unfortunately, I don't have much external people here sitting there, but at least for those external people, so the prime focus is, I personally was a tester, so I know what and all can be done. And when I used to do, it's not just about, oh, good job, it's about great job. Because we could bring down sophisticated infrastructure straight away down, and including the head of the departments, technology CTOs used to come and ask what happened. That's the sophistication level. And somebody being a frog in a well sits and thinks just OWSP top 10, I know, and I use some of those common vulnerability database, NVDs and CVDs and all this, and I know some hacking stuff, web. That's not the end of the world. This security testing is so vast. That's like, there's no boundaries. It's like a sky. You can do anything. You can invent new attacks, new. So it's all up to your understanding on how deep you are on this subject, right? So there could be perimeter internet attacks, BGP prefixes being pulled out, sessions have been torn, gateways have been taken down, hijack the gateway, move the gateway. Even though you have N+2 or kind of redundancy HAs planned, you can do N+3. Your third is the attack platform, and your gateway has moved from N+2 to N+3, and the third one is already is not the actual genuine box. It's an attacker box, and all the traffic is flowing through the attacker box. So that's the kind of attacks I'm talking. Just injection attacks. Many people only talk SQL injection. I will tell you 10 to 20 types of injection, which is possible. Load test, APIs, a lot of things are possible. I'll tell you, the sky is the limit, as I said. Emulation of DDoS attacks, service level test to benchmark services. Yes, security controls, defensive and offensive modes of testing. Just not talking from offensive security, we're talking defensive security and modes of testing coming in from that. So how do we ensure data plane is protected, control plane is protected? Now there's another plane we are talking, which is cloud application management plane. So that's another plane which did not exist before cloud. So there's so much of dynamicity and complication added with the cloud coming in, with the IoTs and smart things happening. Now, a very, very important cloud application management plane has to be protected also. Somebody asked me a question, PCI DSS explicitly doesn't talk about that. I said, it doesn't talk about that, but I know by knowledge application and by knowledge base, if you don't protect that, you compromise others. So that's the risk. So it all depends on how deep you are. So defensive measures, session control, authentication and encryption, very important. You just don't authenticate, you also have sessions encrypted, and unique sessions are there, and keys are valid, keys are unique, and session keys are complicated, and they randomly driven. So validation, bidirectional filtering is very important. So when you do validation, bidirectional filtering, don't do just input based, output based also. Additional parameters, checks based on policy. Create as many policies as possible. Another layer, business logic layer. logical layer. Call it as a business logic or security logic, secure logic. It's not secure logic, security logic. Sorry. So secure protocol usage. Yeah, very, very important. Use secure versions of it. Secure BGP is there, and that not many people are using, and tons of attacks possible on BGP. Secure RDP, SSH, TLS 1.2, 1.3. PKIs. The PKI problem is if you don't really implement it proper way, it's compromised. That's a major problem. So that's what is the problem. Keys are not secured like that. Best way to start with the protocol attack is by learning RFCs, BGP security vulnerabilities, IETF tools. If you go to the RFC particularly, it talks about tons of vulnerabilities there. It can be, those vulnerabilities can be used to plant an attack, and that's a threat once again. Yeah. So I think we are at the end of the slide. So I could, I could go close to almost. I could cover all the things. Yeah, there are tons of things. MITR published Open Attack Matrix, and how many people even remember in this vertical movement, horizontal movement, lateral movements, collection, command and conquer. You know, the specific techniques there. You know, we need to talk. Very, very important. You know. So there are a lot of things, right? So command and conquer exfiltration impact. That's where is the negative part of the story coming in. If you don't have an NDA, if you don't have any agreement, and you're doing it, you might be in the jail if you do it for. So you need to monitor that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's gonna end the webinar. Thank you for all the time and patience. If any specific questions, I can take it. No specific questions? We have some time. Let me see. Okay, all right. If there is no questions, we are closing a few minutes early the webinar. Do let me know if any specific questions so that it can be answered. Else we'll wrap up. Chat, somebody. None from my end. Well, discuss presentation. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.